And so what I've done is I've loaded the sample file and we are in what we call quick child support. So we're in the enter data section, child support, and we're under quick. If at the inception of the case, you already did a financial statement using these hyperlinks, when you come to the child support tool, you will see that all of the relevant information has flowed over to this screen. So if you prefer to enter the data or have already done a financial statement, none of that information is wasted. It flows throughout the entire program. And when you are ready to calculate child or spousal support, you just come right into the support, and we're starting with quick. Family law software quick support calculator is intended to be just that. It's going to cover most of the cases in your state. It's intended for simple cases and consultations. And so what you will see on the quick child support screen is you will have a children section. You can mark shared, sole, or split custody. And you have income and a few deductions. And we are automatically calculating spousal support. So you'll see that section here. You'll see spousal support is being calculated on a weekly basis. It's a live number. And at the top, you will see that child support is also calculating, and that is going to be a monthly number. Now, again, most cases can be handled on this screen, but we also have what we call complete. If you switch to the complete child support calculator, anything and everything that could affect child or spousal support or the cash flow of the parties related to child and spousal support amounts and costs, income flow, etc., will be on this screen. So complete. So if you're ever on the quick screen and you're thinking, where do I enter XYZ? Your case requires the complete screen. You can see the child support number at the top is unchanged. All I have done is switch over to the complete calculator, but I have not lost any of my data. It is still available for me on this screen. And the first thing that you're going to notice is we have two options for the guidelines that you're using. So in October of 2021, you had some changes to your child support guideline. The amount of income, like the guideline amounts, et cetera, have changed. And so that happened in 2021. By default, anytime that you start a case, you're going to notice that this is the guideline that we're going to use. If you have an older case or a case where you're having to calculate retroactive support and you're wanting to use older guidelines, you can. So all you would do is check this box. So again, if you have retroactive support issues or an older case and you see that this box is checked, that is done by the user. So somebody in your office has made that election. So at the top, but don't worry, if you have a new case, it's just going to go with the updated law. You'll also notice at the top, we have the taxability of alimony or spousal support. This has been a long time change for multiple years, but we still have it at the top. Again, for retroactive cases or cases where there is a tax consequence for spousal support payments, but by default, we're going to follow the current IRS guidelines, and both of these are going to be checked. If you have any questions about this, no worries. These little blue bubbles, you're going to see them pop out throughout the program. And if you have any questions about that, especially if you have a modification case, a retro case, or older case, then definitely check out these question bubbles. I am going to open the first folder. And so what we have here is what we call the children folder. And the first question that I always get is, well, I need to calculate spousal support and there are no minor children. What do I do? Or there are no children. You would still use this calculator. You still come to this screen for spousal support issues. You just do not enter children. So in this case, what I could do is I could just delete the children, and then you'll see that there will only be a spousal support number. So again, if you have cases where there are no children, you still come to the child support / alimony calculator and just do not enter children. In this particular case, which is the sample file, we have two children. We have Kim and Reese. And every time that you enter in a child, we will assume that the first parent is going to be in these boxes, meaning they are the custodial parent for the guidelines and for IRS purposes. and that parent is also claiming the child for tax purposes. We don't know how many overnights or how much time sharing the parents are exercising, so you have to choose if you're going to be doing a shared custody analysis or sole custody analysis based off of the parenting of 2/3 of the time. So if I check box 1, we instantly see a major impact on child support if we're assuming that there is shared custody. So they're having that equal time sharing or close to equal, versus sole. If I check the sole box, then we'll instantly do the calculation at the top. So we do not ask for overnights. We ask you to click shared or sole. The last option is split custody. You cannot accidentally use this tool. The custodial parent has to be different for each child. So I would use these drop downs. So both of these are drop downs. So I would say Blake and possibly Blake for this option as well. So now the children are split, custody is split, and now this box is working and the calculation is updating based off of a split custody calculation. Let me go, just click on shared, for instance, and I'll just switch these to Taylor. What do these boxes do? So number 1, the date of birth is going to be important for tax calculations, knowing if the child is eligible for support, and we are going to calculate the step down, so level 1 and level 2 for child support purposes. So we'll get to that in one of our last folders. But for the step down calculation to work, you have to have the date of birth for both children. We talked about custody as far as like share and sold. This box, though, is about tax credits related to the children, specifically the child tax credit. Now, we understand that in Massachusetts, you're a gross income state for your child support guideline calculations, but it is important to know what the true cash flow or net income is for the parties, and this has a big effect on the parties' actual net income, spendable money that they have after taxes. And this is a drop down. So we would assume that the custodial parent is also claiming the children for tax purposes and receiving these tax credits. The program is calculating, IRS taxes, so the federal taxes, the state taxes, and all of these credits in the background. So all I would do is switch this to Blake for tax purposes only. So Taylor, Blake, alternating or neither. So if you've ever wondered what these boxes are for, they seem extra, they don't have an impact on the child support number, that's what these boxes are for. If you ever have questions or wondering if any of this is relevant to your particular case, again, you just click this little blue bubble. And in this particular case, we have a very long explanation about what it means to claim a child as a tax dependent and what credits we are specifically talking about, and children that qualify for those credits. We assume that every child you enter into the program is eligible for child support based off of their age. So we consider 18 to be the cutoff. And so if the child were over 18 but still eligible for child support for whatever reasons, you would just recheck that box. And again, every child is assumed to be of the relationship. While you don't have other dependent type credits related to your child support calculation, again, this is about child tax credits. And so if I needed to add a child from outside of the relationship, I could add the child and then just remove it from the calculation, but it will be a part of their tax analysis. All right, so we've gone over a lot of information. At any point, you can go and print support or spousal support. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because we're going to talk a little bit about the Cavanagh case. So by default, when you start a file, we're going to calculate alimony first and then child support. What does that mean? So when I go to print support, this is for child support. This is my child support guideline worksheet. And again, we're assuming that we are always calculating alimony first. That's the first way that we're going to do this. And if I want to click PDF in the top right-hand corner, I can have a guideline worksheet that reflects alimony first. And so I can scroll down and see what I've done so far. And I can click on the worksheet here. So this is a gross income worksheet. And so if I click this worksheet, we will see here alimony received from this relationship. So that's the gross income worksheet, and it's factoring in the spousal support. I can also go and switch to print alimony at any time. So if you wanted to know what the alimony in this particular case is, it's going to be right here, that line 12. And so at the top, you only see child support. The alimony number cuts off. If you're using the desktop version, the numbers would be at the bottom of your screen. So I can come and check here. So let's go back to our child support calculator. And so we're back. We've got the two children, the date of birth. And what we were just talking about is the Cavanagh case. So by default, we're going to calculate alimony first. You can switch and calculate child support first. And so when you do that, you see an instant effect on child support, and alimony typically calculates to 0 in most cases. And so where we would see that is I would go back into the print alimony calculation. So you can have one where you're calculating alimony first and then child support first, and you can print those. And so all I would do is go back to the print alimony here. And I can see that in this particular case, there is no spousal support then. It would just be child support. So you can see it zeroes out. Not all cases are going to result in a 0 alimony support, but for the majority, the way that the math is going to work, and you can come here and print this worksheet out so you can see how that process works and why it goes to 0. You'll be able to see that here. Or I can switch back to calculating alimony first. And so then you will see the alimony is being calculated on a monthly basis on line 12, and then on the weekly basis here. So we break it down twice for you. All right, let's go back to the child support calculator. And again, we're doing the default, which is the alimony first. We're going to get into some more analysis tools that can help you see this on a side-by-side basis. But for now, let's go back to focusing on child support. So we've talked about the children and who's claiming them for tax purposes. And then we've discussed shared and sole. So you would not enter overnights. You would let the program know if you're doing a share, sold, or split. All right, next folder. So because I'm using a sample file, I already have wages in the program. Let me scroll back up. If you were using this calculator for the first time and have not entered any information, you would see your party side by side, and these numbers would be 0. And so for your calculation, you would pop in your gross income here. This is assuming that the income is coming from a pay stub. And however your client gives you the information, so you can see both clients here are on an annual basis, but this is actually a drop down. So if your client gives you their income on a monthly, weekly, biweekly, et cetera, you would pop it in whatever, however they give you the information. We also handle high income cases. So if the parties have that combined income over the 400,000, that's going to be that new threshold from the new guideline in 2021, and we're automatically going to apply that. So if you have high income cases, yes, we are doing the calculation based off of high income earners on the guideline sheet. Imputation of income, or someone who doesn't have, who is unemployed. So you're going to see that we have this hourly tool here. So in this case, let's say Taylor does not have a W-2 wage, they're unemployed. I could check this box here, and the program's automatically going to calculate the current minimum wage in your state. And so this tool can be used, again, for minimum wage purposes. You just check this box. Or let's say Taylor is a contractor and Taylor is paid $30 an hour. I could check this box and then pop in the $30, and it'll assume that this is full-time employment. So that's how I could use that hourly tool. Going on with that scenario again, if Taylor were self-employed or 1099, you can see that throughout the program, we have these check boxes, which are going to be tax elections. You're not going to see a change in your child support numbers, but when we go into some of our analysis tools, I'll show you some of the other support tools that you could use. And so you'll be able to see the true available net income for possibly spousal support negotiations. Right. And then on the other side, the same. I've got Blake, I've got an annual income, and I'm just going to leave that section alone. If you want to add another source of income and you want to keep it separate, you don't want to lump every everything together from a W-2 pay source, I could add another wage. And then here is that income over the maximum. So I could check this box. It'll only do the higher income calculation if the parties have that source. So if you check that box and they're not over that income level, then don't worry, it's not going to do the calculation unless the income meets the threshold. All right, by default, we assume that the parties are going to be in 2023. Head of household will be designated to the primary parent and single to the other. Again, for cash flow purposes, this would be a drop down. They could be joint with a new spouse or qualify for head of household. They would be given head of household designation, if custody were split, because each one would claim a child. All right. Other sources of income are going to be located in what we call wage-like income. So if you're wondering, where does the bonus go, the tips, etc. Let me scroll back up. All of the sources of income are going to be located here. Put them in the appropriate line because we're going to create that gross income worksheet that you can attach to your guidelines that will show what sources of income came into the calculation. Income from support and other relationships and public benefits, you might say those are not income sources. If you click on this little blue box, we'll explain to you that we're not including it in the guideline calculation. But again, the program is running a cash flow analysis and creating a budget report. So if you're a financial user, these are going to be fields that you definitely want to use. This is also where Social Security benefits are going to be. And if the parties have VA disability, you would put the disability benefits here. So let's say Taylor's receiving $1,000 in VA benefits, and I would just want to check this box. So it lets the program know that it's non-taxable disability benefits. And then Social Security, if they're only living on Social Security, then obviously pop those numbers in this correct area. If you want a different source of income, it's just not listed here, and you want to have that special source of income listed here, you can use these lines for those purposes. Family law software, if it doesn't have a lot of those military pays, so if they have like a housing, if they're in the military and they have a housing allowance or some type of strange source of income that you want to outline here, you could just put it in here. And so you'll have that line, and so you can easily see how it affects your calculation or remove it later. The last source of incomes or incomes to exclude are going to be listed here. So Social Security derivative benefits. If the child receives SSDI because of the parent's retirement or disability, so one of the parties is disabled or they're older and they're retired with minor children, then this is the section where you would want to put those income sources. Why are there 4 boxes? So first, whoever receives that check, that dollar amount is going to go in their column, the recipient of the funds. And then the follow-up question is the child receiving those funds because of their own disability or the other parents? So if Taylor's receiving a check for $800 a month, but that check is specifically because of Blake's disability, I pop that number in here, and then you instantly see that child support. They get a credit against their child support, and so you'll instantly see that update there. But again, if that number were due to their own disability, then you'll see the impact or no impact at all. So again, whoever is receiving the funds, that's where that dollar amount is going to go, and then pay attention to the own or the other record. Right. Additional income. So we have a little special section here. And so potential income. So again, underemployed, imputing income, however you want to do that, you have that potential income section. Reimbursement income. So again, look at your statute and your definition. So if they're getting some type of allowance for a vehicle or dry cleaning, those are the types of things that we want to think about. And then you're also able to exclude income. So think of those parties that are working, crazy overtime hours. If you want to exclude income or, a part of the income, think about income to exclude here. All sources of income are going to be considered. So we have this section, what we call income from assets. So if you have parties that own a business, so let's just open this section up here. Let me scroll back to the tab. So here are going to be interest, dividends, rental, etc. All sources of income are going to be listed here. Put them in the right place, again, for the correct analysis, including businesses. So if you have parties that own one or multiple businesses, you definitely want to pop that income here and pay attention to either doing it based off of cash flow or entering a schedule of income and expenses. So there's lots of different options throughout the program. And if you ever see this green box, it becomes particularly important with particular assets. You can check on that box and look at the different tax analysis in the background for businesses. If you don't have any of these sources of income, you can skip these folders. So if you pop in the gross income and you're like, let me get right into the deductions, all I care about is my final child support number. I know what the income is. I know what the allowable deductions are. And it's definitely not this tax analysis that we've been discussing throughout this presentation. All you do is go into the deductions folder. So you don't have to go folder by folder. These are going to close as I go through, so you can just skip through and enter what is relevant. And then in this particular case, what you could enter is here, we've got some deductions. So childcare expenses. You can see that this number is blue, and it's because there is a childcare worksheet here. There's multiple children, so one child might be in daycare and the other child might be in middle school. So there are no childcare costs or very low childcare costs. So what's going to happen is these blue fields are calculated and they're coming from this worksheet here. So if I click on this childcare worksheet, we can see we have child 1, child 2, child 3, child 5. If you only have 2 children, you're still going to see all of these lines. So just ignore those extra lines. But in this particular case, we could say that child 1, the weekly childcare cost, we'll just say it's like $400 for that child. And maybe this particular child is just like in an aftercare program, and I would just pop in the $40 there. You can use the back button in your browser. So at any time, if you're using the cloud, just click on the back button, or I can just click back on the child support alimony field and it'll take me back into the section where I was located. And these numbers, again, are blue fields that are doing a calculation, and they're bringing them from the child care worksheet for each child. Medical, dental, and vision are all located here, and we are asking for the total cost. So in this case, let's say that the weekly premium, and again, we know that everybody's pay period is different. So ultimately, we're asking for the per week cost in this box. But if the client is giving you the information on a biweekly or monthly basis, if you click the number field here, you're going to see that there's, for every field, there's going to be like this little calculator and a hashtag. The hashtag is for non-number fields, so that could be a to be determined. But if I click here, because the client has given me the health insurance premium on a monthly basis, I click that calculator and I can pop in the period, the pay amount per the period. So I'll say they're spending $900 a month. And we will calculate the weekly amount, which is that 208, and I click OK. And so now, rather than you having to pop out your calculator, determine what the weekly number is, all you did was click the field, open up the calculator, enter the information as you received it, and we will pop it in the weekly amount. So I know that can be confusing, the weekly versus the monthly, and then your final reports, again, they do both. Right, for those financials users on the webinar, we assume that all of these are going to be pay deductions. So you can see for medical, dental, and vision. So we have 3 here, and then we have the tax category for each. By default, we assume that it's going to be a pay deduction, but if that's not the case, just go in here for that drop down. And then other support. So if you went through the income and you just came to the deductions, the last one is going to be other support. So if one of the parties is paying the expense of child or spousal support on another relationship, again, this is a weekly number. So if you've ever had some strange results, just pay attention again. These are weekly periods, and you would just pop that in here. So let's say that Blake has a child from another relationship and they are paying $100 a week in support for that child. Right. Again, so anytime you can go and click print support, but we had talked about a few other items that we have. One of them was the step down. So if you remember, in this case, we had multiple children. So if I want to see the first level and then what will happen when that first child ages out, we have this folder here. And let's open that folder. And so this is going to be the child and spousal support that you want to use moving forward for all of your cash analysis. But for attorneys, you might want to see the step down report, which is located with this hyperlink right here. So if I click this and I scroll back to the top, we can see that child support for 2 children is the $3,302 on a monthly basis. And then when that child ages out, when they turn 18, then child support is going to drop to $2,500 here. So this is going to be a full calculator for all of those needs. Let me go back here and let's go to print support. So I'm done. I want to see what my final printout looks like. This is a print preview. You can see that all of this is in blue because these are all calculated fields. But when you're ready to print, you would just click PDF in the top right-hand corner. And then we also discussed the gross income worksheet. This is not going to automatically print, but I believe that it's a really valuable exhibit. So if you click worksheet, we'll see what the gross income sources are. Click PDF and then attach it using your PDF viewer. For spousal support, when we go to print spousal support, at the top, we show you the calculation for spousal support, and then we have the duration here. So if I want to put in the information regarding the parties, like the marriage, the petition, etc., we will calculate the years of the marriage, etc. So this is going to be the duration worksheet for spousal support, and I would just click PDF in the top right-hand corner. And then I have that spousal support worksheet here. All right, I wanted to talk about a few more data points. So I'm going to go back into child support and I'm going to scroll up to the top and I'm opening the children folder. So at the beginning of the presentation, we talked about the Cavanagh case or just seeing this child support as a live number. Family law software has more tools to help you make certain decisions throughout the lifetime of the case. And a lot of those tools are going to be located under analysis. So if I click analysis here, if you're a basic user, you will not see these tools and you would need to upgrade. If you are an individual or firm user, you will see all of these tools. And this is support what if. This is child support on a side-by-side basis. Again, I'm using the sample file, so when I come here, we already have some scenarios laid out. This actual column is going to match the child support calculation that we've been working on. Scenario 1 is a play scenario. What would you use this for? And this screen has multiple purposes. So if you are a person is underemployed or you're debating if you want to calculate child support first or child support, alimony first or child support first. We have all of these boxes here and they will instantly impact the calculation right here. So all you do is come to this screen. If you're prepping for mediation or you're using this as an exhibit for your fact finder, you can lay out your scenarios here. And so when you come here, let me just remove our play scenarios. You'll see child support here is on a weekly basis. If I click add scenario, both of these are identical. And so all I could say is support before alimony. And so here I'll see the instant impact on child support. And then in this particular case, spousal support goes to 0. So you have to do it both ways. And so this is a way to do that side by side. So this is how you can apply the Cavanagh case is column 1 versus column 2. And then you could add a label here so that you have a reminder of what you did. There's other things that you can play with on this screen. So if you just come down here, these are all, you can do a shared versus sole versus split. So you have all of these options here as well. And you can make adjustments and then instantly see the results at the top. We also talked about for financial analysis, when we were doing the calculation, we were checking, self-employed, 1099, who's claiming the children for tax purposes. All of that information is coming here to the impact of the support. And so what you'll see here is this is the full cash flow of the parties. So if you ever have a case where you've calculated child support, spousal support is up in the air for whatever reason, it's a collaborative case, you're in mediation or you're looking at different proposals, this is that first report where you're going to see the income, the child support, and the current alimony. And you can click expanded report to really see the tax calculation at hand. But what you're able to also do is we have what we call alimony alternatives. So if you're not going to use the calculation or your calculation has been set to 0 and you want to see what the cash flow is, these are other tools that you have to play around with spousal support. The most common, especially for long-term relationships, is what we call balance incomes. And if you come to this screen and there's available income, so in this case, there is all the income's been allocated for these particular parties, you're able to use these tools to help you find a fair amount of spousal support. And all of these analysis tools are drawing all of this data is actually coming from the data that we've entered either on your financial statement or while using your support calculator. So family law software is going to be a comprehensive calculator for the simple and the complex cases. When you're calculating child and spousal support, come and use these tools. If you have cases where spousal support is up to the parties and you really want to do that analysis of cash flow, go into that analysis tab and there's a ton of tools. None of that information is wasted. So go in there and start playing around with different scenarios for your case. All right, thank you so much for joining this webinar.